Pleasant afternoon, evening, and good night. This is Dr. Kilo with Good Hair, Good Body. Uh, we're covering a topic this summer. For this summer, we're doing summer care for skin and hair, but it's not cosmetology. We're actually talking about diseases that and medical conditions that people have to be aware of that impact their health. So let me make sure my volume is all the way up. Okay. So in the summer, we have to be concerned about maybe 4 to 5 different major categories of um, medical conditions, illnesses. One of them are concern the hidden dangers behind mosquito bites, okay? And so today we're going to focus on the dangers, how these mosquitoes zone in on us, and how to prevent and manage these bites and what comes along with these bites because these things carry little monsters. The mosquitoes themselves are a pest, but what they carry is more of a hazard to our health than the mosquito bite itself. We don't offer medical advice, we only offer education. So, in this presentation, we're going to cover a number of things concerning mosquitoes, mosquito bites, what attracts them to us, different diseases that make them more attracted to us, and there are different diseases that do make us more attractive to mosquitoes, as well as offensive and defensive strategies to either make us invisible to them or make us unpalatable to them. And a lot of these strategies also protect us against their hidden weapons that actually cause us more harm than the bites themselves. Um, we're also going to cover some steps at reducing what makes us attractive to these mosquitoes. And it's not just mosquitoes, it's other biting insects as well that hone in on on similar signals that the mosquitoes do. So this is why they're hazardous to our health. Is because they leave a lot of unwanted guests behind after they bite us. They oftentimes in their saliva have other life forms that they transmit. So if you know anything about pressure, there's always a force exerted over an area, which means there's a flow. Well, as things flow in, other things flow out. As the blood flows in while they're biting us, there are things that are being transmitted from their digestive tracts, particularly in their mouth, into us. And I, I'm confident you all know what these aliens are. They're alien to us. They're parasites. Okay? And these parasites um, often seek out the parts of our bodies that have the greatest blood supply because the parasites siphon off nutrients from our blood to continue and progress through their life cycle. So these parasites can take forms in any form. They can be worms, they can be um, viruses that are not beneficial to the bacteria in our system. So just to give you a background, in the body, there is an ecosystem of protozoa, bacteria, viruses, but one thing we don't have is worms. Anytime you find somebody with worms, you have to consider that they're in a disease state, and that's the only reason those worms are there and thriving, or they have acquired those worms through what they have eaten or through sexual contact or through some sort of bite, animal bite. Okay. And these parasites, they make us sick because they steal from us. Okay. There will also be bacteria transferred in the bites as well. So, some of these parasites include Chaga, babesiosis, things that you've probably never heard of. Um, parasites that cause elephantiasis, so when the limbs get big because the lymphatic vessels in the tissues get blocked. The lymphatic vessels in the tissues are the vessels that carry waste away from cells, and our liver processes that waste. The lymphatic fluid is made up of fats and fatty acids from broken down cells, whether those broken down cells are our own infected cells or or um, broken down cells from the invaders, okay, the parasites, the bacteria, whatnot. So the lymphatic vessels carry that to our liver processes them, and we eventually pass them through our stool. Well, there are so many parasites that are found in mosquitoes and other biting insects. So it becomes imperative, especially in months when it's not snowing. And the reason I say months when it's not snowing is because if you've ever been out in the fall, even in northern climates like Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, insects are still out in November and sometimes in December, depending on how warm it is. And it doesn't have to be very warm. It can be as warm as maybe above 35 degrees. You will still see insects outside, just not as plentifully as in the spring and summer and early fall. But they are there. Okay. Um, a lot of tropical what I have listed here, like Chaga babesiosis, parasites that cause river blindness and elephantiasis, malaria, trypanosomiasis, all these funny sounding names, leishmaniasis. You get these like in tropical areas, right? Zika, I remember, and I'm quite sure you all remember a few years ago, Zika was very big, and it was wreaking havoc in places like Brazil, particularly the northeast in the region of Bahia, which is Bahia is a region where you have a high concentration of people of African descent. And, there was some controversy about why it was hitting Bahia more than any other place. But it had nothing to do with the people who have lived there for centuries. Um, there are often mitigating circumstances where you will find parasites are mosquitoes that carry parasites prevalent in certain areas, but it has nothing to do with the hygiene or the customs of the people. Okay. There's Eastern and Western equine encephalitis, where um, uh, people will get infected um, from mosquito bites and it causes the brain to swell. Chikungunya. I remember a few years ago that was taking over a good piece of the Caribbean, including Dominican Republic, which is on the same island as Haiti. There's dengue fever, yellow fever, which has been prevalent in Central America, including Panama, Costa Rica, the Darien province, which is northern Colombia. Panama is technically northern Colombia because before it was its own country, it was part of Colombia. It was the most northern part of Colombia. And then there's California encephalitis. And this is just to name a few. There are so many more mosquito-borne illnesses. And so we have a lot to protect ourselves against. But before we get to that piece, because I try to always come with solutions, not medical advice. This is just educational stuff. So these parasites, um, they attack all parts of our body, but particularly where we have blood vessels and nerves. So where do we have a high concentration of blood vessels and nerves? That's going to be our gut our lungs. And the thing is, lungs and gut are embryologically of the same origin. It's just a matter of geography. They both handle fluids. The lungs handle air, the gut handles chyme, and chyme is basically the mashed up, partially mechanically digested food that exits the stomach and then is worked upon by enzymes and bile in the small intestine. And then eventually you have further water reabsorption and mineral reabsorption in the large intestine before the waste product exits the body. But these bites uh, often carry parasites, okay? And so if you get bitten on your feet, oftentimes the parasites will travel through your bloodstream to your lung. And once they partially mature in the lung, they will crawl up the airway, the trachea, which is this tube right here. So these are your lungs here. And in this middle picture where you see lungs, this paler area are the lungs, and then the bronchioles, and then the bronchi, the trachea, and they will inch up, inch up, inch up, trying to make their way out of the respiratory tract. And because they irritate the respiratory tract, they stimulate a cough reflex. And oftentimes when people cough, they don't spit out, they actually swallow. And so they those parasites end up being moved through the cough reflex from the lungs into the digestive tract, where they continue and complete another phase of their um, development until they are passed out of the feces into the environment and picked up by another vector. Another organ that is loaded with nerves and blood vessels is the heart. Okay. The brain as well is loaded with nerves and blood vessels. And then the lymphatic system is a circulatory system, as I mentioned, for cellular waste that parallels the vascular system, the blood vessels, the bloodstream, which carries nutrients and oxygen to cells and tissues. So these parasites hijack superhighways, whether it's the respiratory system, the bloodstream, the the nerves, the lymphatic vessels. They hijack them and go to organs that have a rich supply of nerves, meaning if you think nerves, think minerals. And when you also think blood vessels, think oxygen, carbohydrates, like sugars, amino acids, such as the building blocks, which are the building blocks of proteins, fats, which are fatty acids, which are the building blocks of membranes, and cholesterol, which are components of membranes. So these things are smart. They've been around longer than most of us have been alive. They know how to trick our bodies into transporting them where they want. So, it's a matter of there are more insects on this planet than humans. So it's a matter of evading them. You have to have tactical offensive and defensive strategies. Now, how do we go about that? Oh, one more thing. The reproductive tract of both men and women is rich in nerves and rich in blood vessels as well as lymphatic tissue. So these parasites will often attack these organs as well. And if a woman is pregnant, they will try to attack the unborn fetus. So it's imperative that women and men keep their bodies parasite free, because he could transfer them from his sperm, um, his ejaculate into her vaginal tract, and mess up the whole balance of her ecosystem. If she's pregnant and they have sex, they can try to penetrate the amnion, which is the basically the baby envelope, and within the amnion is amniotic fluid, which keeps the baby buoyant, and that's rich in proteins and minerals. Parasites love that stuff. And once they get in, they can start to attack the baby's tissues. And usually that will put a woman into premature labor because the uterus doesn't like anything in it except for the conceptus, which is the fetus. Okay. It doesn't want anything in there except oxygen, nutrients, amniotic fluid, placenta, and the fetus. Everything else is considered a threat and will trigger a sequence of abort mission, which is the pregnancy will be dispatched prematurely, and that puts a woman into premature labor. Okay. So we're going to get through this. I just want to give you all the background because once we get to solutions, it will, I'll help you make sense of it. So for parasites, we have to consider worms. We have to consider protozoa, which are these, I don't want to call them primitive. They're simpler life forms, but they can wreak havoc on our lives. They're not as big as worms or bacteria necessarily, but their whole point is to eat and reproduce. That's the whole point of all of these things. With viruses, they are non-living material, but they are purely genetic in origin. So it's either RNA, which codes for proteins, DNA, which codes for RNA, which codes for proteins. The virus may have an envelope, which is a membrane around it. And if you ever hear membrane virus, just remember that membrane came from the previous host that was infected with that virus. So that's actually foreign tissue around the viral particle that has entered your body. So not only is it infectious tissue, but it's foreign DNA. It will trigger your immune system to have a response. So these are the numerous different types of illnesses that are transmitted through mosquitoes and biting flies. Okay. Uh, don't memorize this stuff. Just be aware of it because what you really need to know is how to prevent as well as manage this. Because when it comes to preventing mosquito bites, the management is similar but not the same as prevention. So let's go into what attracts mosquitoes and a lot of these biting flies. It's carbon dioxide, which is the molecular gaseous acid. Because when this stuff is in our blood dissolved in water, it um it when it combines with water, it becomes carbonic acid, and then it dissociates into carbonate. So think of carbon dioxide binding to water, making an acid called carbonic acid, and then dissociating into carbonate, like a little bit of baking soda and a whole pool of water. That's what happens. But as with everything in chemistry, all of these molecules are in equilibrium, and carbonic acid serves as a buffer to our blood pH to keep everything nice, not too acidic, not too basic. But when we have eaten food of any kind, consumed proteins, sugars, starches, or fat, and our digestive tract is breaking down those nutrients, the byproduct of that breakdown is carbon dioxide. So this is a signal that triggers the attack. We can't get around making carbon dioxide. We naturally make it as we break down our nutrients or even break down our own tissues in cases of um, when people are fasting or starving, because you will blow through your glycogen stores, which are your stores of sugars in your liver and your muscles. And once that you blow through that, then you start breaking down fat. And once you break down fat and you blow through that, because initially from the fat breakdown, you'll make ketones, and then your cells will use ketones for energy to keep themselves alive. But once you burn through all your fat, you're not going to make any ketones. So here we go. We start burning muscle. And that's when people start to lose muscle mass. Okay. But in any case, carbon dioxide, I already mentioned this piece that it's a byproduct of nutrient breakdown. It's a gaseous acid because when it combines with water, it creates carbonic acid, which is an acid. It's not a very strong acid, but it's acidic enough to help balance our pH right in the middle. Okay. 7.45. So really the range is 7.35 to 7.45 with a mean of 7.4. That's our blood pH. Um, and we are constantly making carbon dioxide from breaking down everything we eat, as well as our nutrient stores. And it's the homing signal for these mosquitoes. They're like, oh, this person is eating well. They're making a lot of carbon dioxide. That means their blood must be rich with nutrients and oxygen. Let's go feast, y'all. It's Thanksgiving. So how do we emit this chemo attractant? We exhale it, we sweat it out, we pass gas, and we belch. You know, any gas exchange, whether it's from the lung, skin, or gut, is going to send a signal to these mosquitoes so that they know lunch is here. But we don't want that. So, what disease states make our bodies produce more carbon dioxide? Well, whew, a lot, as well as consumption of a lot of um, consumables. I won't say they're all food, okay? But processed food is a big one, including refined sugar. Alcohol is a processed consumable, but it's not a food. It has no nutrient contribution to your body. It actually is a toxin. Starches get broken down into sugars, and sugars get broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. The consumption of meat, even though it takes a little longer because it's more dense, as well as the consumption of fats, will cause our bodies to produce a lot of carbon dioxide, CO2. If we have a high metabolism, that we burn through what we eat very quickly. And that tends to happen a lot in the summertime because we're exposed to sunlight. It charges our cells, and our cells are looking to maintain themselves, make melanin, to offset the load of solar energy and dissipate it as heat and still use that solar energy to make vitamin D and to make melanin and other transducing molecules to protect our cells. Because melanin does serve a function, and it serves multiple functions. It's not just one. That I came to find out that presently melanin per gram is 750 US dollars, but gold is only like 100 US dollars. So let your mind wander with that one. If you're exercising, your metabolism is already high. If you're hyperthyroid, it's the same as having a high metabolism because thyroid hormone tells the mitochondria to burn faster and burn as much as possible, burn more. Ketosis tells the body to burn through the fat stores. You're going to make more carbon dioxide. Any chronic stress, um, you're going to uh, break down a lot of glycogen in the liver and the muscle, which means you're going to end up breaking down that glycogen into sugar and then burning that sugar, which will release carbon dioxide and water. Any lung disease, aka respiratory dysfunction, or kidney disease, aka renal dysfunction, you're not going to be able to get rid of carbon dioxide as a gas through your lungs by exhaling. You're not going to be able to get rid of a lot of metabolic acids. And your body is going to try to buffer that but it's not going to be very successful. So you're going to end up exhaling by compensation. Your body, if your body can't urinate out acid, it will exhale acid, more acid through the lungs. So that means if your body is biochemically acidic, which is called metabolic acidosis, um, you will exhale as your body will try to compensate by exhaling more acid in the form of gaseous carbon dioxide, CO2. And that compensation is called metabolic alkalosis because it's called respiratory alkalosis because the lungs are exhaling more carbon dioxide, which alkalinizes the blood starting at the lungs, and then it spreads throughout the body. Um, but all of these conditions and more, including cancer, yep, because cancer is a metabolic state in which the tumor cells, as well as cancer cells, are just burning through nutrients. They're not obeying any checkpoints. They have a higher metabolic rate, although they participate more in fermentation of sugar and the breakdown of certain amino acids, particularly glutamine. But anytime you break down anything, you're going to make more carbon dioxide. So you'll find that people who are recovering from cancer and their metabolic rate is higher because, like, say they're missing certain enzymes or missing bile depending on what organs have been partially resected from their bodies. Like if it's the pancreas and if it's the pancreas and the gallbladder, they're going to constantly, the pancreas is not going to necessarily produce as much digestive enzymes. Um, and if it's the gallbladder that's missing, the liver will continually make bile acids, but there won't be this massive spray of bile acids when you eat something fatty. So you'll have this constant release of bile acids instead of selective storage. So you're going to constantly be breaking down stuff. That's why people who are recovering from cancer, if they're not doing chemo, if they're not doing traditional chemo, they're in a state of um, cachexia where their body tissues are being broken down to keep them alive. Their metabolic state is going to be high. Their carbon dioxide output is going to be super high, and they're going to track a lot of mosquitoes. So you have to give them support. Support. People who are diabetic are also going to be oftentimes in some state of ketosis where they're breaking down body fat as well and converting that into keto acids to use as energy. The byproduct of the breakdown of the keto acids is carbon dioxide. So you also have to give people who have diabetes support to make them less attractive to the mosquitoes. So just consider just about just about any medical condition you can think of, including pregnancy, you're going to produce more carbon dioxide. People need support to not be attractive to mosquitoes and other biting insects because the people are overproducing carbon dioxide. So, when it comes to high blood sugar, whether that's type 1 or type 2 diabetes, the people will tend to be in metabolic acidosis. Why is the blood sugar high? Diabetes, particularly diabetes type 1, you're not making enough insulin. So you're not you don't have the signal telling the cells to pull sugar into the cells. Diabetes type 2, you're making insulin and actually overproducing it, but the cells have gone deaf to the insulin. They're not listening. They're insulin resistant. In both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, blood sugar remains high. In type 1 diabetes, insulin is low. In type 2 diabetes, insulin is high. Okay. Um, Blood sugar can be high because of overconsumption of starch and refined sugars, processed sugars, as well as consumption of alcohol, which is fermented sugar. When it comes to carbohydrates, as they are broken down by our cells, particularly in our mitochondria, um, they are broken down into different acids as and every time they're broken down, energy is stripped. Atomic energy, or let me say it differently, subatomic particles, high energy subatomic particles called electrons, are stripped from them and gathered up. In any case, the byproduct of the breakdown of starches are sugars, and the byproduct of the breakdown of sugars is carbon dioxide, which is a gaseous acid. So our blood becomes acidic because of the metabolism of breaking down what we're eating. So we end up in metabolic acidosis. So if you have high blood sugar, you have to understand that you are already in metabolic acidosis. Your blood is acidic due to its biochemistry. Okay? Nothing to do with the lungs, but any hormonal changes that make you end up craving starches, sugars, you're going to end up eating more of them and you're going to become more acidic. And that does not bode well for the kidney or any other tissue in the body. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And then the people continue to attract all kinds of biting insects. Overconsumption of animal products. Why does that lead to metabolic acidosis? Because animal protein is made of amino acids. And so when you break them down, you end up with more acidic blood. Okay? Proteins get broken down to sugars. Um, Proteins get broken down into amino acids. Those get broken down into sugars. And then the byproduct is carbon dioxide. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether it is muscle meat from lives from cattle or fish or dairy. It's all the same. The protein is the protein. So you're going to end up breaking down those proteins into amino acids, sugars, and ultimately carbon dioxide. You will end up in metabolic acidosis. Your biochemistry of your blood is more acidic than it needs to be because you are breaking down materials that leave behind a lot of gaseous acid, carbon dioxide. Respiratory acidosis. This is when the lungs can't clear, they can't exhale properly and clear out enough carbon dioxide from themselves. So the lungs end up holding on to more carbon dioxide, which means more carbon dioxide in the blood, which means more acid in the blood. Where do you find situations like this? COPD, emphysema. So COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Emphysema, okay, your lungs are not as elastic as they used to be. Pneumonia, you have so much inflammation in the lungs, gas exchange can't occur, so you don't end up bringing in enough oxygen, and hence you are not exhaling enough a gaseous acid, carbon dioxide, as well as lung cancer. Why lung cancer? Because twofold. Lung cancer occupies where normal lung tissue would be. So that normal lung tissue cannot engage in gas exchange. Number two, cancer cells they have a high metabolism, so they're going to constantly be breaking down nutrients, oftentimes by fermentation, and the byproduct will be carbon dioxide. Okay, so you end up with a respiratory acidosis because of lung dysfunction. Liver dysfunction will do the same. Why? Because the liver makes enzymes that protect the elastic tissue in the lung, but if you have liver disease, a diseased liver is not making a diseased liver is not making a molecule that neutralizes an enzyme that would normally break down the elastic tissue in the lung. So the lungs become less elastic in liver disease. Guess what happens? If they're less elastic, you cannot exhale enough carbon dioxide. So you end up holding on to it. And so you are in a condition of respiratory acidosis. The first word, respiratory, means the primary site of defect is in the lungs. Acidosis is the consequence of that primary site of defect. Whereas in metabolic acidosis, the primary site of defect is in any other part of the body but the lungs. So oftentimes that will be in the kidney or some other organ. But in any case, that's how you read that. And metabolic means any other place but the lungs. Respiratory means the problem is in the lungs. Acidosis is a consequence of the defect. Or if this were alkalosis, that would be the consequence of the primary defect. So, lung disease, you can't get rid of carbon dioxide, which means you're holding on to carbon dioxide, which is a gaseous acid. It accumulates in the blood. And so that is respiratory acidosis. What you'll find in my courses, I don't just teach you this for that, meaning a lot of people will ask, what do you have for this? What do you have for that? That's not how I teach. I teach for you to gain the knowledge to protect yourselves. It's educational purely, but these are the kind of things that are imperative for people to know so that they can um, better protect their health. Okay. And unfortunately, a lot of physicians don't get paid to teach this stuff. So, to their patients, nor do they have the time. Where will we also have a high incidence of metabolic acidosis? I already said if you have a high metabolism. I already said strenuous exercise. I already said ketoacidosis, right? Whether you're fasting or doing a keto diet, you're going to make a lot of ketones, and ketones are acids. That's why they are also known as keto acids. Um, both fasting and keto diet deplete the liver as well as other tissues of glycogen stores. So you end up switching your metabolism for breaking down the glycogen, which is the stored version of sugar in animals, including humans, and is stored in the liver as well as in the muscle. Once you once you deplete those glycogen stores in your liver and in your muscle, you end up switching to fat burning metabolism. Therein lies your ketosis, right? You start burning body fat and you're releasing carbon dioxide. You're releasing carbon dioxide and ketones, and then those ketones are then further broken down by the cells to generate energies, not one energy, energies, because all these energies generated by the mitochondria have their own function. Um, when you're breaking down fats, you're releasing fatty acids. They get burned, aka rusted out, aka oxidized. That releases electrons, and your cells need those electrons to thrive. The burning of fatty acids releases ketones, and those ketones are what give us the bad breath and the bad body odor when we are fasting or on keto diet, or when um, fat just is breaking down. If you've ever known someone to have an obstruction in the stomach and the fats begin to break down, it really does smell like an oil refinery. It is a rough smell to smell. It can make you gag, make you run. It stinks. But burning fat releases massive amounts of energy because fats are loaded with electrons, and it releases massive amounts of carbon dioxide um, and water, but it stinks because you're rusting out the fat. You're you're breaking it down through oxidation, and oxidation is just another way of saying rusting. Rusting releases energy. I'm being as thorough as possible so that you recognize the different multitudes of people that um, among your relatives that you it's imperative that they know these things so that they don't go out and just be vulnerable in the world, especially with regard to mosquitoes, um, as well as other biting insects. Diabetic ketoacidosis. Oftentimes, this occurs when a type 1 diabetic forgets to take their insulin. Either they're sick and they only take their insulin when they eat. So if they're sick, they are not eating, they are missing their insulin dose. Their blood sugar, without insulin, there's nothing to tell a type 1 diabetic person's cells to pick up insulin out the blood and use it as fuel or store it as glycogen. So their blood sugar stays high. And you have cells that some of them which are going to consume that sugar, break it down and burn it and convert it to carbon dioxide and water and electrons. But you also have um, infectious processes, the use of cocaine that can result in diabetic ketoacidosis as well. Because when a person is using cocaine, they're not eating, they lose their appetite. When they have an infection, you often lose appetite. They forget to eat, so they don't take their insulin. They're not taking their insulin, there's not enough signal to tell their cells to take up the sugar out of the blood. So the blood sugar stays high. You have some level of fermentation, breakdown of that blood sugar. If there's tumor and cancer cells there, they're going to ferment that sugar and release carbon dioxide. And some cells may have some limited capacity to break down the sugar and release carbon dioxide. It accumulates in the blood, bam, metabolic acidosis. Metabolic usually means there's something wrong with the metabolism or it can be something wrong with the kidney. Acidosis is a consequence of that defect. Now, kidney failure is another one that can lead to metabolic acidosis because you can't get rid of acid, so you retain it. Makes the kidney have to work too hard. The kidney does not like to work in acidic environments. It just does not. The kidney is not the stomach. Okay. It makes it harder for the kidney to filter because the filters are enzyme based. Sorry, the filters are not necessarily completely enzyme based, but the filters are channel based. So you have certain filters that allow minerals in, push other minerals out. But when the pH is off in the body, that means it's also off in the kidney. The kidney sees 25% of each heartbeat. Well, now it's getting inundated with this acid. It's not going to be top tier functioning. So you essentially have to clear out the acid in order to get the kidneys back online. And anytime you have kidneys that are compromised, it makes the lungs have to work harder. It makes the skin have to work harder. So you're going to sweat out more carbon dioxide and you're going to exhale more. All of that is going to attract, is going to attract, okay, these lethal, oftentimes gruesome some critters to you. So kidney disease, can't get rid of excess acid, carbon dioxide accumulates, that's metabolic acidosis as a result of accumulation of gaseous acid in the blood, and the lungs and skin work harder to excrete more carbon dioxide. So we become insect magnets, particularly mosquito magnets, really quickly. So here are some strategies. I know that was a lot, but you need to know because what you don't know will cause you harm. What you don't know will hurt you. So offensive strategies you can take to make you invisible to these mosquitoes is if you take well, first of all, you're going to limit anything that's going to overproduce carbon dioxide in your blood. So that's limit or completely get rid of the animal products, which is not reasonable for a lot of people, but I had to put it in there because some people are willing to go vegan to avoid mosquitoes. Um, you have to avoid processed foods, and that includes refined sugar, white sugar, as well as carbs, meaning baked goods. Okay, there are some carbs that are safer to eat than others. Um, they just don't have the fufu and fandango on them. Like they don't have a bunch of refined sugar on them. So there are carbs you can eat that are not going to make you necessarily attractive to these biting insects, but play it safe. If you know you're going to go outside and be outside for any length of time, avoid consuming sugary things, starchy things. And if you're going to do so, consider um, eating vegetables, eating fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. Okay, they're loaded with fiber. And the fresh fruits are loaded with pectin. They help bind up some of the sugar. You want to eat, like I said, fresh fruits and vegetables because their level of sugar is lower, which means their breakdown will yield less carbon dioxide, less molecular acid. You want to exercise in the early morning when there are fewer mosquitoes out, and you want to control your blood sugar um, with whatever your physician said, and um, or depending on what your physician says, um, herbs, teas, herbal extracts. I know Dr. Amsu has quite a few. Um, how do we extend the benefits of this offensive strategy? You have to lower your carbon dioxide output. So you have to find ways to decrease inflammation. You have to heal faster. These are all benefits when you decrease your carbon dioxide load. You have less inflammation because you're not producing as many advanced glycation products, which are basically molecules to which sugar has been added by force. Okay. So that's your proteins, your fats, anything that would make a membrane or be a communication signal. Um, you end up with less joint inflammation, less acne because you basically starve out the bacteria that make waste that irritates the pores, causes them to inflame. So you end up when you don't eat refined, aka processed foods, you end up starving those bacteria that make acne worse. Okay, because there's not as much fat around, not as much nutrients around, nothing for the bacteria to feed off of in your skin, are a lot less of it. And that causes also a dieback of some of the bacterial overgrowth. When you lower your carbon dioxide, now you don't want to lower it too much because carbon dioxide is the acid trigger that tells the brain to send signals down the vagus nerve to cause the diaphragm to contract so you can breathe. You never want to lower your carbon dioxide amount too low because that's deadly. They can shut off your drive, your respiratory drive. And then you'd actually have to think about every single breath, and that would not be fun. Um, when you lower your carbon dioxide, in your blood, you also starve tumor and cancer cells because they love acidic environments. And how are you going to lower this carbon dioxide? You lower your animal consumption, your refined sugars, starches, and baked goods. You stick to garden grown fruits and vegetables. And if you want the starch, you'll eat. Um, you can eat things like breadfruit if you can get it in your area. Um, as well as a number of squash. Okay. The glycemic index will be lower, but it's healthier for you because, in addition to whatever sweetness they have fiber. And that prevents the overload of sugar in your body because it's going to, the pectin particularly will bind the sugar. Okay. The pectin is a water soluble fiber. Um, Defensive strategies. Here we go. So this is one. I do offer mosquito repellents. This one here with the green label, that's mild. So if you are a young child, and I believe the cutoff age is about 6 or 7, it's on the website. Um, this is a good one to use. Now, if you're older, your nervous system is fully formed, then the one with neem is great because it's a much stronger uh, formulation. And then if you prefer mosquito repellent in a gel, we have cooling gel. This is water soluble. The creams are fat soluble. And if you have conditions like psoriasis. I try to make things cost effective for people who have psoriasis so that they're not buying multiple products. They need something to soothe the itchiness of their skin, but they also need something to repel the mosquitoes. So I developed cooling gel as well as cooling cream for that so that they could have it in two products instead of having to buy three and four. And we all can relate to being a child running through the park, especially at dusk with our friends. Those are memories. It's very different now. Summer Ease is the mosquito repellent cream. It works very well. Uh, Mosquitoes don't tend to want to bite you, but we have some. We also have the one with neem, which is extra strength. They really hate that one. Anytime we go out in the garden, that's what we wear, and we even put it on our clothes. Um, the gel is water soluble, and then this cooling cream is fat soluble. But I really designed this for people who have psoriasis so they didn't overspend or have redundant product. We still sell the cream. Now, when it comes to foods, it's you have plenty. I only listed a few. So when we're talking about foods rich in selenium and sulfur, I need you to unmic. Tell me what you think those are. You can unmute rather. I didn't mean to say unmic. You can unmute. Say that again. Hello? Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep. I'm sorry.
go ahead, sir.
No, I wasn't sure what I was going to answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's
Yeah, I
okay.
was
That's okay.
thinking,
No pressure here. Um,
spinning my brain wheels there a little bit.
okay. So when it comes, it's okay. So when it comes to foods rich in selenium and sulfur, I want you to think of what makes food most flavorful. When you go to a steakhouse, are you smelling the steak first or are you smelling what they season the steak with?
Seasoning for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and what primary seasoning do they first put in the pot?
Salt, right? Would it be salt?
Not necessarily.
Like the
If you want to flavor the
garlic?
oil,
Onions and garlic.
bingo,
Yes.
there
Yes.
you go. Onions and garlic. And what onions and garlic are loaded with both selenium and sorry, they have selenium and sulfur. Now, what other vegetable? Because onions and garlic are lilies. They're of the lily family. Anybody that took our summer course, they know that because we related everything to gardening when it came to the foods. Um,
Mhm.
Now, we know onions and garlic are part of the lily family, but what category of leafy vegetable do onions and garlic make taste incredibly better? And I'll give you
Uh,
a clue. It's a cold weather category of vegetable.
cold,
Cold weather.
it's cold. Green garlic. What would it be? Oh man, what else could it be?
Okay, I'll give you another clue. It's it's a category of vegetable that survives cold temperatures.
Survive. What vegetable survives?
Mm,
Uh oh man, this is a good one.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, don't tell me.
Okay. Anybody else want to answer
I was
before
gonna
I
give them like 5 more seconds.
go ahead?
The cruciferous vegetables.
Bingo. Okay, so I want you to say you're exactly
Oh,
right.
leafy greens, right? Like
Yeah, because not all leafy greens are equal. Okay, you have the amaranthi, the Amaranthaceae, which is like the spinach and chard and beet family. Those are not cold weather vegetables. They do not survive freezing temperatures, but the cruciferous do. Okay,
Garlic, uh,
right.
carrots, right? Carrots, isn't that one that would survive?
Not necessarily. They like early spring because they need a longer growing season before they actually produce. But no,
What
not
about?
carrots. Go ahead, sir.
No, I can't think of no,
That's
carrots.
okay. That's okay. We just here to
Yeah.
learn. I kind of just did. I added a drill at the end of this presentation, and drills are something we actually do in Foods for Flawless. I'm sorry, in Medicine Behind Beauty. We do drills in
Mm,
Medicine Behind Beauty so
okay.
that people get in the habit of using the information so that they can go into the world confidently and put their foods together to build their
Mm,
systems. So I just did a mini drill. I know Kenya knows I did a mini drill.
mm,
That don't worry, Mr. Dan. It's okay. Um, because you're new, so you may not be um acclimated, but if you join, this is how we do things. I
mm.
teach and then another day we go through drills, but I just
Yeah.
decided to just do a mini drill today.
So I get a
So
1 day pass. Okay, 1 day pass.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So when it comes to these cold weather vegetables, they are bolstering your system with deep earth minerals, volcanic minerals. These are not the only volcanic minerals. There are others, but these are key um, immune boosting minerals. But there are more boosting minerals than these two. But the reason I talked about um, foods rich in selenium and sulfur is because I need you everybody who is listening, who's present now and who is going to listen in the future to know. In the summer we prepare for winter and in the winter we prepare for summer. So right now while you're getting sun and whatnot, you're preparing for the winter. The sunlight you get in these 3 to 5 months has to last you through the harder months. So that means, yeah, you're going to have to build up, but you also want to gear up to plant these cold weather vegetables that are going to keep your immune system hardy. Why? Because they will have captured sunlight. And you go and clean them, and then you clean them, you wash them, you rinse them, you let them dry some, and then you chop them up and freeze them. You have captured sunlight. So that stuff is going that those bitter vegetables, those pungent vegetables, whether they're root vegetables or the brassicas, they're going to help you get through the winter. And then there's some other things that will help you get through the winter as well, but it's imperative. Why? It's not by coincidence that the same minerals that boost your immune system, for the most part, are the same ones that invaders don't like. They boost your immune cells, and invaders don't like them because they're toxic in small amounts. But our cells can have, over time, with the creator's help, developed ways to utilize small amounts of these toxic deep earth minerals, volcanic minerals, to our immune system's advantage. So I just wanted to make sure I stress that. The other thing that you can consume, and this is the short list, this is not even the long list. If you're going to plant, you don't want to consume lavender because it has some estrogenic effects, okay? Some people drink mint tea as well, but when you cook, make sure you put your aromatics in your food. So that's your, right there, you see it: basil, thyme, rosemary, oregano. Also, lemongrass. A lot of people around the world have their special herbs they cook with. So in the Caribbean, we have our peppers, our onions, garlic, and thyme, right? And basil. In places like Southeast Asia around the equator, they have their peppers, their onions, their garlic, but they use lemongrass. Now you'll never forget. Mosquitoes don't like lemongrass, but they also don't like these other aromatics either. So when you look at the cuisines around the equatorial regions of the world, the hottest places in the world where it's wet and it's hot, you will find the food is spicier because ancestrally our ancestors um, learned that by using these spices, they can keep parasites at bay because mosquitoes and other biting insects love these tropical areas. They're wet, they're shady areas. Um, they can reproduce easily and fast, and there are enough massive as well as small number of animals, as well as in between, people that are a good blood supply for them. So our ancestors, whether from Africa, the Americas, Southeast Asia, all those equatorial regions, our food is spicier because using spice, our ancestors used spice as a means to control and get rid of parasites. These are my references, and let me just pause this. These are just some of my references. Let me just pause this. I'm going to show you. So when I post this, I'm going to post it so that you can share it to your friends and family, because this is what we're going to cover, this topic of summer care for skin and hair. We're not talking about um we're not talking about cosmetology. We're talking about health. And cosmetology is part of health. So never think that it's a lesser thing. It is not. Cosmetology is part of health. We're talking about it from a point of view of you may have a hair issue, right? Or a skin issue that an esthetician would see and say, hey, that needs medical attention. A hair issue, a nail issue that your cosmetologist may see and say, that needs medical attention. I may know what it is, but professionally, it's not for me to tell you, you need to go get that diagnosed. Well, if you learn how to recognize these things, then you can be more conversant with your barber, your nail tech, your loctician, any other cosmetologist, as well as your physician, so that you can better protect yourself. Okay. So when you join this text message list, do it at 10 o'clock or in the morning. Um, because I had a bug I have to work out, but I don't want you all to miss it. You're going to get notice of secret sales. You're going to get notice of new products, and we do have new products out as of last week, and secret sales as of last week. Um, we have new courses. We have one coming out about it's a program called Fat Addicted and Aging Fast. And what it does is that we run you through how to identify a bunch of toxins in food that are used as food additives, but they really mess you up and cause all manner of havoc throughout your body. So when we have secret sales, it's during the secret sale that you can get a bigger percentage off. Um, and we don't want people to miss that. So, and then we have, let's see, we have medicine behind beauty, which that we just did today is medicine behind beauty, right? But in talking about the dangers behind insect bites, that was just one feature. The next time we meet, we'll be talking about another summer care issue that pertains to our overall health. So with medicine behind beauty, we focus on health things that affect skin and hair, it may affect them directly or indirectly. We may talk about brain issues that affect skin and hair, heart issues, lung issues, gut issues, it doesn't matter, reproductive issues that affect skin and hair, but they have their other identifiers that maybe don't affect skin and hair. But we treat, instead of saying this is medicine and this is cosmetology, we don't treat it that way. We treat it as, we're going to talk about the dermatological and cosmetological as well as the medical, overall medical aspects of different things. I believe last week we talked about seborrheic dermatitis, or the week before that. It's either last week or the week before that. So, and last week we talked about cardiovascular disease as it pertains to what we eat, and that one I'll post as well. But share, when I put the video links, share them with your friends and family, and share with them the link so that they can sign up for these things. Why? Because let me tell you, there's a lot going on in the healthcare arena as well as the health insurance arena. And let's just say the recommendations that are being made are not favorable to the general public. So the onus is on us, meaning those of us who know these things, to teach them to people so that when they find that insurances are not covering the things they used to cover, are they're increasing your insurance premium, you have the knowledge of taking better care of yourself because you are with you all day, every day, 24/7. Your doctor may only see you once a year, and that is for maybe 15 minutes. So the onus really is on the individual, as well as the family, to take great care of the individual and the family. So that's why we teach this stuff. Are there any questions before I stop recording? Because I can take your questions all when we're not recording. Okay. And this is our contact information. You can find us on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. This is our website at the bottom, goodhairgoodbody.com. And we cover all of this. We cover medical education in layman's terms. We do consultations for businesses who want us to design product for them. And we design product for our own business, including the mosquito repellents, the hair and beard care, bald scalp care. Yes, that's a thing. We do make, we don't see a lot of companies doing it, but we do. And we also have other skincare, including aging skincare. That's one of our newer products. We actually have an aging skincare line, which we did not have before, but we have it now. And our natural deodorants are very popular. So this is Dr. Keela again at Good Hair, Good Body. We not only make product, we teach. And if you want to learn more, contact us on Instagram, Facebook, or at our email, customer care at goodhairgoodbody.com. Signing out.
Oh, that was amazing.
Thank you. So